What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another module. Today we're going to be talking about TikTok cold campaign setup. Okay, so if you are an agency right now that is, maybe aiming for lower CPMs, a higher click-through rate, and you target a more younger demographic in terms of the clients that you work with, TikTok's going to be a really good option. So today we're going to be going over TikTok cold campaigns, okay? How you can start bringing in clients into your agency, or at least getting booked calls into your agency from TikTok. Now, I used to do this as well too for e-commerce brands and info products, because I know that a lot of coaches sit on TikTok in the younger demographic, even into like the 30 to 40 range, but also a lot of e-commerce brands as well too. So I used to utilize TikTok quite a bit. And I remember when I jumped in, it was very, very inexpensive. So if you are looking to dabble in paid ads, but you don't have the craziest budget, TikTok could be the right one for you. It could be the right platform for you. So let's dive right in. So today's module itinerary, we're going to be talking about the ad campaign setup on TikTok, campaign types, interest targeting, and lookalike audience targeting as well too. Okay. So the pros and cons of using TikTok ads, all right? Let's call out the elephant in the room. So you have the pros, obviously cheaper traffic, trending and growing ad platform. It is fairly new, so the costs for advertising are fairly low. And you can use your TikTok ad creatives on Facebook and Instagram, which tend to perform very well because of their short form nature. Now, I can definitely attest to this, because even for a lot of our clients we are running their TikTok ads and their Facebook ads, we take a lot of the content that they send us for TikTok specifically, and we actually use it on Facebook and Instagram. And it converts like surprisingly very, very well, just because I think the short form content side of it, it really resonates with their audience. And because like TikTok is so like fast paced, it really catches the audience's attention. So your creatives go a longer way when you're creating, content and ad creatives for your TikTok ads. Now, in terms of the cons, okay, the downsides. So obviously new creatives are required constantly. We were changing out our creatives probably every single month, max, sometimes even like every 2 to 3 weeks. I would also add that you need a lot of creatives as well too. Like I know in the Facebook modules, I was telling you, you have maybe like 3 to 4 different top of the funnel or cold traffic campaigns, ad creatives that you're testing. But with TikTok, you're probably creating like 3 to 4 like every week to 2 weeks. So it's just a lot more volume. Now, you must be involved with the current trends. Like the problem is I would always encourage you as a business owner not to become a consumer of content. But with TikTok, it's good to actually consume the content, at least within your niche, so you understand the growing trends and kind of what's going on. Thirdly, you're focused to consume TikTok content to understand the current state of the ads, like I had mentioned, and then typically a younger demographic. Okay, so as long as you adjust the targeting, that can be fixed, but it is typically a younger demographic, and you'll find sometimes the traffic is just a little bit lower quality. So setting up your TikTok ads. Okay, I'm going to run through this really, really quick. And I'm going to basically show you guys exactly in my TikTok Ads Manager how you can set this all up, okay? So the campaign goals, right? So always optimize for website conversions. This will allow you to optimize for specific events on your website or your funnel, okay? Now, in later on in the ad group level, you can actually identify like what your optimization event actually is. So as you can see here, you're going to choose basically external website, and then you have the option to choose your TikTok pixel and the optimization event, okay? Now, placement, okay? So you're going to want to select manual placements. Always select TikTok as your only placement. You don't want your ads showing on other platforms that they partner with. Okay, that's a very big one. I know that they're always partnering with different ones, like this one, Pangle or whatever this is. Just always make sure you have TikTok selected. Okay, if there's one thing that I can really encourage you guys is, I know this is really relevant on Facebook and pretty much all the platforms, is just when you're building out your ads, take things slow, because I know that there's so many times where I've launched campaigns before and I've had to turn them off within like a day or two, because I missed a step, something with like the targeting, the placements, or something just so small, such a small detail, and it just ruins the whole campaign. And then you end up wasting $40 a day or $50 a day on your ads. So just make sure you're taking things slow, you're being granular, you're being detailed in the way that you're moving forward, okay? Now, in terms of targeting, okay, you're going to want to select custom targeting, okay? TikTok's going to give you the prompt to basically select automatic targeting or custom targeting. Make sure you select custom targeting. This is what's going to allow you to actually search up for audiences yourself, all right? So choose the location that you want your ad shown to. Always add the language of your audiences. So for the most part, it's going to be English. Select the genders and the age range, and then be strict with your age targeting, okay? So again, just because TikTok is such a young demographic, it's really important that you make sure you're targeting people that are older in age. I know that here in this example, I have selected 18 to 24. I would even encourage like that's the lowest you should ever go. I would even remove that, to be completely honest, just because a lot of people who are 18 to 24 on TikTok, they just don't have a lot of money. Okay. So they're not going to be your ideal client. So interest targeting. All right. It's very, very similar to Facebook. Okay. It works almost just like Facebook. In fact, I'm pretty sure TikTok completely stole the ad platform or the business manager concept from Facebook. So it all works very similar. So again, you're going to be stacking your interests and narrowing down basically just isn't an option on TikTok. Because TikTok is fairly new, I think it's something that they're probably going to look to come out with when they have like a lot more data on their audience. But right now, there's just no narrowed down sort of option. So the only way to narrow down on TikTok is to basically utilize like multiple categories of your targeting. Okay, so you can basically utilize your interest targeting and then kind of narrow down with like the hashtags, right, and the way that they're engaging. So that's kind of the only way that you can really narrow down in a sense. All right. So when selecting your interest, you can add a bunch of interests that relate to your niche and begin using the recommendations TikTok provides you to stack on top of your current audience. Okay. So with TikTok, you're able to target audiences based off of interests, which is highly effective, types of interactions on videos, specific creator interactions, which again is highly effective, and then specific hashtag interactions. Okay. So don't worry about narrowing down on devices or nothing like that. I know it prompts you to narrow down by device. Don't worry about that. Okay. But those 4 main ways of targeting your audience are the only way that you can actually like target your demographic. Okay. So what I will say is I've obviously listed that interest targeting and targeting by specific creator interactions is highly effective, because if you actually go into your campaigns, you can basically target, certain big creators on TikTok who maybe, have large audiences within the, e-commerce space, right? So maybe you're targeting people or these coaches or gurus online that they kind of preach to like the e-commerce space, right? They teach people how to build dropshipping businesses or build, brands online. If you're an e-commerce agency, you would want to target those creators, right? Maybe you're working with, coaches, info products, right? You would want to, start targeting the coaches that are on TikTok and have a large demographic that you can actually go and target, right? So it's very, very effective that way. In fact, you used to be able to do this on YouTube. You could target by channels. So like we used to always target, especially in the info product space, we'd always target these big online gurus that like we knew were consuming content from channels who were, teaching them how to become a better coach, how to build a better info product, how to build their click funnel, all these different things, right? So you kind of have to like reverse engineer the whole process. All right. Now, scrolling down, obviously budgeting, again, very similar to Facebook. So for lead generation, spending about $50 to $100 a day is more than enough, especially on TikTok. You're going to get a lot of impressions. And I believe if you're using ClickFunnels as well too, you also have to keep in mind that you only have a certain limit of the amount of traffic that can come to your funnel or to your overall funnels on a monthly basis. I believe it's 10,000 users, which is honestly more than enough. But just keep that in mind, because I know that TikTok traffic is cheaper. So if you're spending the money on TikTok and Facebook and you're doing like all this other lead gen acquisition, you're going to maximize that traffic very, very quickly. Okay. So just be cognizant of that. So budgeting $50 to $100 a day, more than enough. All right. And that's basically it. Okay. So TikTok ad campaigns are insanely simple, very similar to Facebook. All right. So important to note before we jump into my TikTok ads manager and kind of break everything down for you. Okay. Because TikTok is new, they don't have tons of targeting options. Okay. That's something that, I mean, even when I was running ads on TikTok, like, in 2022, early 2022, wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot. It was almost like you kind of had to take like a broad approach. I have noticed that like recently they've started adding way more targeting options, especially for like our e-commerce brand clients or our info product and coaching clients. There's tons more. So even running through, we'll show you guys there's a lot more options. So you guys definitely have the upper hand. Okay. So when they give you interest recommendations, it's best for you to take them. Just apply the critical thinking to the selected options. Okay. So whenever TikTok gives you recommendations, take into consideration, because chances of you like being able to search that on your own, it's slim. So take into consideration. Okay. Unless you understand the TikTok ad platform's ins and outs, I advise you to stay away from the hashtag targeting options. Okay. They're more complicated, and trending hashtags constantly change on TikTok, meaning you'll be adjusting your ads constantly, which you don't want. Okay. So again, hashtags, it's one of those things. If you are consuming content or producing content on TikTok, you'll recognize that like these hashtags come and go. It's very trending. Okay. So you'll constantly have to change out your ads. I highly recommend you stay away from them. Again, the beauty of client acquisition with TikTok ads is your ad setup is actually very simple and it's very straightforward. If you were an e-commerce brand or a coach, like you're constantly having to monitor this. Okay. But the beauty of the lead generation side, it's actually very simple if you just make something that's more evergreen. Okay. And then lastly, TikTok traffic tends to be lower quality due to its younger demographic. Okay. So be strict with your age targeting. I would even take that a step further. Just be strict with all of your targeting. Okay. Make sure you're targeting the right audiences, the right demographics, the right locations, everything. Okay. Anytime that I have ever tried targeting, especially like a location that I know I could get cheaper traffic and maybe it's like it's still within like my ideal client. Like good example of this is right now I'm here in Dubai. I used to the UAE as basically a location within our Facebook and our TikTok ads. CPMs were really low, click-through rate was really high. I was booking calls like insanely cheap, but the problem was nobody was showing up, right? So you have to take this into consideration. Like, is this actually your ideal client? Okay, so make sure you're strict on that process. So let's just dive right into my TikTok ads manager. So right now, this is basically at the level where you're on your ads dashboard, you click create a campaign. This is basically how it goes, okay? So for this instance, for conversions, you're going to want to select website conversions. By this time, you've already installed your pixel. You're going to want to name your campaign. Call this top of the funnel test. Okay, campaign budget optimization turned off, and all that is good to go, okay? Again, being very cautious as you go on, making sure that you don't miss any steps, okay? So ad group. We'll do stack number 1 test. You're going to want to do website, external website. Obviously, we're trying to, target people to bring them to your actual website, not some TikTok instant page, although this is a good option. It can be if you want to have people fill out a survey. TikTok Pixel, Pinnacle Media Agency, that's the one that we have. Again, I want to make it very, very clear. So the optimization event that you are going to be optimizing for is the one that is on the final page. It's on the final page of your funnel or when somebody confirms their event, okay? So if you use something like Calendly, when somebody goes to your booking page, that's not what you're trying to optimize for, okay? When people go to your calendar page, they're going to fill in the form, submit it. It's going to redirect them to a different page. If you have followed the previous modules where you've created basically a final step in your funnel that pre-educates them, it gets them excited for the meeting, that's the page that you're going to want to be optimizing for. Okay, so that's the pixel event that we have installed on our funnel, which is contact. Okay, now in terms of placements, select placements, remove Pangle, whatever the hell that is, keep TikTok. Creative type, don't need to worry about this. Automated creative optimization, you don't need to worry about that. Custom targeting, don't use automatic targeting. It's going to remove a lot of these options, so utilize custom targeting. Locations, we'll do, and again, this is also very different on TikTok as well too, because depending on like where TikTok is even relevant, and also what location you're in, it might not let you actually like target certain locations. So for a good example of this, I can't even target United Kingdom here. And then so I can only target the UAE, right? United Kingdom isn't even on here. So for the most part, you might not even have like that many options. Canada and the US, if you're in North America, this is typically like a pretty good audience to target, okay? Languages, select English. Genders, all. Age, demographic, like I had mentioned, these are probably the ones that you can consider, but I would honestly say like 25, 34, 35 to 44. That's basically your demographic. If you go any higher, you can if you want to, but like I said, it's just more of a culture thing at that point. Like if you're a young agency owner, chances are if you wanting to work with guys or girls that are in their like 50s and 60s, they might be great business owners, nothing against them, but again, would you want to sit across the table, drink a beer, have a glass of wine with that person, right? It's more of a culture thing, okay? Now, cool thing here is you can actually like household income. This is a really good option, again, to narrow down like, okay, does my demographic that I'm targeting actually have money, right? So you can also utilize this. Again, just keep an eye on like the available audience here. Again, I'm not too sure how TikTok even like knows this, to be completely honest. Like they just have so much data on so many people. So I would trust that this is accurate, but just keep an eye on this available audience because you don't want it being too small. I would rather keep it, a little bit more broad or a little bit bigger, just on TikTok specifically. Okay. Now audiences, you can actually skip this. Okay. You can exclude audiences if you'd like, but again, I wouldn't recommend it. This basically just goes into the more custom audience sort of sense. Now, in terms of interests and behaviors, okay, this is where you're going to add everything in. So it's actually going to already give you like recommendations just based off of, because I've already run ads, so it's giving me the the typical sort of recommendations. But here's where you can add your interest. Okay. So define what level of interest they have: general interest, purchase intention. Okay. Because you're trying to go for leads, I would just stick to general interest. I found that when I've done that, my CPMs they're a lot lower. CPMs typically with this, again, it might just be a data thing with TikTok, but it might be a component that you want to split test. Okay. So again, way more interest to target on here. So it just really depends on what niche that you're basically in, right? So if maybe you're in the e-commerce niche and you tend to target, beauty and personal care, right? You would come in here, maybe skincare, cosmetics, fragrances, feminine care, right? We can do that. Yeah, there's so many, right? So you kind of get the point. Now to narrow down, again, you can do like creator interactions, right? To find how they've interacted, view profile, followed. So I would always click follow and then define what kind of creators, okay? So good example, if we're targeting the e-commerce space right now, we're targeting mainly like the skincare niche, cosmetics niche, fragrances, stuff like that. Something good that we would target is basically this right here, right? So beauty pages, right? So now we're targeting creators that are in the beauty niche. This is accurate because in TikTok, if you have a business page, it'll actually prompt you to say like, what niche do you serve, right? All of the information that you put in on TikTok on the back end as like a user, that TikTok's taking that data, that information, and they're basically plugging it into here. Okay. So you can kind of play around with this. I mean, again, like I know that there's a lot of agencies that maybe work with food and beverage brands, travel brands, maybe video games, stuff like that, like sporting brands, whatever one you work with, maybe fitness coaches, right? So now maybe you're targeting like the fitness coaches. It all really depends, right? So you can, again, play around with this, have fun with it. Again, stacking interest is really, really good here, and similar interest that it's now prompting you on here: beauty, serum, eyeshadow, smooth. Like you get the point, right? Like they're just going to give you a bunch of recommendations. Okay. And then as you scroll down, it's going to, this is already turned off, but basically like device, just keep it at all. Don't worry about that too much. Targeting expansion, I wouldn't recommend turning this on. You can split test this, but every time I've turned it on, nothing really happens besides the fact that like the ads never really converted. It just, again, I'm always scared because it's like, I want to target a very specific audience and I want to make sure that like the demographic I'm targeting has money. And if I turn this on, I don't know if I truly trust TikTok to like find people that are actually within my target audience rather than them just trying to give me like the best cost per result, right? So daily budget, $50. In terms of the scheduling side of things, like I had mentioned in the Facebook modules as well too, just make sure you're not scheduling it on like a weekend or going into a weekend. I would always say like Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Avoid the Thursday and Friday range. Personally, just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is always the best one. And then of course, making sure that you are scheduling it at 12. Oh, I don't know what just happened there. We'll do cancel. 12. And there you go. Okay. So now you're basically good to go. So yeah, 12 a.m. Oh, it looks like they actually do the 24-hour clock. So you basically do this. There you go. And then let's say you're trying to do it on Monday. So there you go. Monday at 12 in the morning. Okay. Departing all day. There you go. Or day parting. Sorry. Optimization goal, conversion, lowest cost. There you go. You're good to go. So now you've set up your campaign level and your ad group level. Okay. In the next module, we're going to be going over the retargeting side of things. And then in later modules, we're talking about the ad copy and the creatives. Okay. Again, very, very simple to do. Obviously with TikTok, like I had mentioned before, it's just one of those testing games. You have to make a lot of content. Okay. But we'll talk about that in later modules. So ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this module. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are utilizing TikTok ads to get clients or to get booked calls booked into your calendar, I'd highly recommend just going through this module over and over, just because, again, TikTok ads it's very simple and very straightforward. But I will say that the bulk of what's going to be your success with TikTok ads is going to come from the creatives and the copy side. Not so much the copy because it's very short form, but specifically in the creatives. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you guys enjoy this module, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay. Cheers.